Well, I have to admit, Channel Islands was a pretty big disappointment for me personally. I was really looking forward to it, but it just kind of let me down in a variety of ways. And I'll just elaborate on that, not to grumble and complain, but so that if you're thinking of visiting, you can hear my points and maybe you say those are valid and I wouldn't like that either, or yeah, those are stupid and this guy's an idiot. So the first thing I'll say is that the campground itself and the camping is kind of a hybrid between backpacking and car camping. So obviously you take a ferry and you don't have your car here, and you also have to limit the amount of things that you bring. So it has kind of a backpacking feel, and I love backpacking, so I didn't think that would bother me. But then there's these other pieces of backpacking that it's missing. As an example, when you're backpacking, it's normally secluded and you kind of have space to yourself. And as you can see here, picnic tables are only about 40 feet apart. And there's also no fires here. So like when you go backpacking, you're normally kind of on your own. You can have a fire. And so some of the downsides of backpacking, like having to pack out your own trash, are downsides, but then there's these upsides to compensate. The other thing about backcountry camping is normally you're by a body of water that you can drink. And in this case, they have a spigot. And so that brings in a lot of people, and it brings in tons of water all over the ground, and, food scraps that attract bugs. So then the other thing is, like, when you're backpacking and you have to use the bathroom, you normally just go find a tree or a bush, or you dig a hole. And some people, hate that. Some people have gotten used to it. But here they have vault toilets, which are not bad, but they're really not well maintained. So they're probably the nastiest vault toilets we've ever seen in a national park. They're just disgusting from people using them and misusing them. And then they're disgusting from, just 1,000 flies inside of each one of them. And so it's kind of like, I'd rather either have something better than that, like a flushable toilet, or I'd rather have something worse than that where, I just go dig a hole. But of course with, 50 campgrounds or whatever, you can't have people digging holes. So it's kind of like not backpacking, not car camping. And for me personally, it's kind of missing the good out of car camping, and it's missing the good out of backpacking, but it's retained kind of the bad. So to me, it's kind of like the worst of both worlds. The other thing that you see, and this may sound a little judgy, but try and hear me out, is the demographic of people in campgrounds can change, and changes with, like, if you backpack 10 miles into the backcountry, very often the people you find there are really cool people. They're interesting. They care for nature. They are quiet in the campgrounds. They're not obnoxious. They didn't bring a bunch of beer with them. And we generally enjoy the company of those people. When you go to a campground, which is just, quarter mile from the road, you tend to get a different demographic of people. Oftentimes that demographic is, people who've never camped before. And so they kind of make a lot of noise and they leave a big mess, and they're kind of newbies. Or the kind of people who drag a cooler with, 100 beer cans and drink all night. And so if you do enough camping, you'll kind of start to see these patterns and trends that aren't 100%. Of course, there's exceptions, but there are these patterns and trends. Then the other thing about this place is, because everyone gets off the boat at the same time and everyone gets on the boat at the same time, it kind of feels like that being herded like cattle tourist trap type of thing, where if you know that feeling of like, feels like you're in a touristy place or a tourist trap, then it's amplified by this, everyone getting dropped off at the same time, everybody getting picked up at the same time. So, and it's just not something we're super into. So the island itself, we thought was kind of boring. I mean, we actually didn't say anything to the kids, but all three of the kids at some point said, like, I'm kind of bored here. The foxes and the jays coming through are very cool, but that's not enough to sustain your interest for 3 days. We did about 4 or 5 miles of hiking up to the ridges and to the coasts, and it was okay, but just not that great. And we were actually going to stay 3 nights here. We called and got out a day early, and because we weren't enjoying ourselves enough to stay another day. And even with that, the kids all kind of said like, yeah, still kind of bored. We rented some snorkeling gear, which was reasonably priced. The quality wasn't great. They were like pretty scratched up and foggy, so it was kind of hard to see. And I've been scuba snorkeling in a variety of places, including Hawaii and throughout the United States. And the snorkeling was like just okay. It was in areas with waves, and so there was a lot of sediment being kicked up, and there were some fish, but they weren't amazing. So again, I'm not trying to be critical, but you know, if you're considering spending, you know, $500 to bring your family out here and camp and get the ferry, then, you know, maybe you would appreciate an honest review and not just someone saying, oh, it's the most amazing thing in the entire world. Now, we're staying on Santa Cruz Island, and that's the only experience we have. I don't know what the other islands are like. They might be way better. They might be way worse. No idea. But these are some of the things that we have found on this island in particular. Yeah, and kind of going back to the demographic, you know, there's people who are dragging suitcases like you'd see in the airport down these roads. There are people who have brought carts, and, you know, someone dragged one of these carts down the road at like 11:30 last night and woke us up. There are people who've drugged coolers out here, which is fine. Like, we have nothing against coolers, but just it's like, as I said, it's like not the car camping experience where you have amenities and access to things. It's more like backpacking, but then it's like people dragging coolers with beer and staying up all night, and that's often not what you want as a backpacker. Yeah, the other thing is, so like the visitor center and the pier have Wi-Fi and cell signal, and that can be useful, and we were grateful to use it a couple times. But then there was also people like crowded around the visitor center watching a basketball game and like cheering and stuff. And again, nothing wrong with basketball, nothing wrong with watching the game, but just if you're looking for that secluded, I'm on an island kind of more wilderness experience, then that really changes that. And so you just want to know what you're getting into. All of these things in and of themselves may be fine, and it may even be what you prefer, but if it's not what you expect, then you may find yourself disappointed. And what we expected was kind of the national park camping experience, but a little bit more wild and a little bit more secluded. And we didn't get that. We actually kind of got the opposite. We actually got like a lot of groups, you know, who seemed to have never camped before. They were setting up their tent for the very first time ever. And with that just comes like a lot of behaviors that you tend to not like in campgrounds, like people staying up late and being obnoxious, and people being loud, and people washing their dishes in like the communal areas where water is, so then it brings insects and animals and just stuff like that. So you may be listening to this and saying, wow, what a nitpick. That's fine. Like I said, I've done a couple hundred nights of backpacking, a couple hundred nights of car camping, and we've developed the things that we like and dislike. And this experience just kind of highlighted all the things we dislike and didn't give us too many of the things that we liked. So it's just trying to be honest and helpful to someone who may be trying to plan their trip and give you a better set of the expectations. So with that, I'll conclude. What I will say, everyone agrees the boat ride was the best and the foxes were the second best. Isn't that right? Yeah. So getting ready to depart, and yeah, this is just kind of like that tourist trap type thing I was explaining. Just like when you're at an amusement park and it's like everyone's trying to get to the same place at the same time. Just kind of that chaos that has its place in the world. Like, no criticism, just it's not always what you're looking for in the outdoors type of thing. So it's just different feel, different vibe from most of the other national parks, and just not one that we were psyched about experiencing.